Hello there, Pastor Dean Melchior here, Franklin Lakes Baptist Church, Franklin Lakes, New Jersey. Hope this short video message finds you well, whether you're part of our church or friends, family, or however you found this message. Our church will be meeting, today is Thursday, June 25th. On Sunday, we will be meeting in person at 9 o'clock for church outside. There will also be a virtual meeting with the same message published on Sunday morning as well, so that will be available to you. I want to give a little preview and some thoughts about spiritual warfare that's going on in our lives and around us, whether we are cognizant and recognizing it or taking strategy against that. That's very real in our lives and as we seek to serve God. So we'll be doing that in the Sunday, whether virtual or in person, by covering the material in the latter half of Ephesians 6 in our concluding message from the series in Ephesians. Let me read the key part of the spiritual warfare that Paul deals with in that section of Ephesians 6 for you, beginning verse 10 through the beginning part of 18. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand firm. Stand therefore, having fastened on the belt of truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and as shoes for your feet, having put on the readiness given by the gospel of peace. In all circumstances, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming darts of the evil one, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying at all times in the Spirit with prayer and supplication. So Paul talks about spiritual warfare here, particularly equipping ourselves. He starts in that verse 11, put on the whole armor, and armor is defensive. He does get to the sword in that section in Ephesians 6, and a sword can be both defensive and offensive. You can block an opponent's blow with your sword, and you can inflict damage with your sword. Spiritual warfare is both offensive and defensive, but we, at our peril, ignore or shut our minds away from the reality of spiritual warfare in our life. We are opposed. I've come across some additional insights from 1 Peter in our very real spiritual, our battle that's going on in our lives, the opposition that we face, the very real opposition. In our message on Sunday, still working on it and developing it, but the nature of it being defensive versus offensive, and what does it really mean? Obviously, we're not physically putting on things, it's metaphorical. It is a lot about the mind and preparedness. But let me go to 1 Peter 4:1, which reads, since therefore Christ suffered in the flesh, arm yourselves with the same way of thinking, for whoever has suffered in the flesh has ceased from sin. Now, just in the exact strict words of that text, it's not confirming that Peter is speaking about spiritual warfare, though I believe he is. But here it's more offensive, arm yourselves. And it's about thinking, it's about mindset. Again, these acts of spiritual warfare, whether defensive or offensive or not, is much about a mental mindset. Peter says there to arm yourselves with a way of thinking. And then in 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 8 through 10, be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. Those are pretty strong words. Verse 9, resist him. Okay, how? Firm in your faith, knowing that the same kinds of suffering are being experienced by your brotherhood throughout the world. I'm going to skip verse 10 there. But verse 9, 8 and 9 there, pretty strong words from Peter. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. Very real opposition. I think it can be confusing, or at least I'll say it's confusing to me. Why such a struggle? We have from Daniel, you may recall, if you've studied Daniel, reports of angels doing battle and not being able to get back to Daniel because of a very real battle in the angelic demonic realm. God could shut it down immediately. Obviously he could. He's all powerful. But there's something about it that is for our good. If we were to develop it further in Peter, we'd be able to develop the idea that the opposition we face is related to our suffering. We suffer because we are opposed. If we are completely unopposed in our efforts to please God and serve Him, there'd be no bumps in the road, and it would be a very different thing. But there's a purpose. God has a real purpose for there being purpose in Him permitting, and that's exactly it, that He permits Satan and his host to oppose us. But anyway, I look forward to bringing a message from Ephesians 6, dealing a little bit with spiritual warfare. I hope the rest of your week goes well. Take care.